So many candidates, so much time. We're going to talk about why we have so much to talk about involving campaigns and candidates in Connecticut. And then a look at how our political situation as it stands right now is from an expert and an insider. And seniors in the state eye health care reform. We look at what has them debating it for themselves. Hi, you're watching The Real Story. I'm Lori Perez. Today we are going to try and get some perspective on Connecticut politics, on what has been a whirlwind of announced candidacies and exploratory committees for a number of races. Here to help us examine the landscape is Dan GERSTEIN. He's a political columnist for Forbes, and he's also president of GOTHAM GHOSTWRITERS, a strategic communications firm based in New York. He formerly served as communications director to Senator Joe Lieberman and as a senior advisor on his vice presidential and his presidential campaigns. Thank you, Dan, for coming up from New York. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lori.
You are a West Hartford guy, and you're right at home here at our new digs in the Current, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. I started my career as a sports writer here 20 years ago. It's sort of crazy.
Now, do you wish that you were still covering sports here in Connecticut? We've had kind of a rough sports season with the UConn men not doing so well, etc.
Well, the UConn women are doing pretty darn well.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the real story in Connecticut sports is whether they will win by less than 20 points in the tournament, which is amazing display of dominance.
Absolutely. Now, I've been joking, but not really joking, that we need a whiteboard here in the newsroom to keep track of who's running for what office and have they switched today or are they still in the same race. Tell me what you think, as someone who has been intimately involved in Connecticut politics at times, now that you have a little bit of distance, what you think as you're looking and seeing the quantity and the quality of candidates.
Well, I think there's a couple things happening. One is it's just a very volatile electorate and a very unusual political time. And I think you're seeing a lot of turbulence. You're seeing a lot of different people getting in the race, different kind of candidates getting in the race. And I think you're also seeing a little bit of, a domino effect of Senator Dodd deciding not to run, because there's been sort of at the higher reaches of Connecticut politics, there's been a little bit of a blockage.
Right.
And with him stepping away, you've seen sort of like what's happened is, Dick Blumenthal becomes the leading candidate for the Senate race, and then Susan Bysiewicz decides, well, I want to switch out of the governor's race, and it's a little bit of a game of musical chairs.
Right.
I think the third thing, though, to a certain degree, is there's not obvious frontrunners in a lot of these races except for Dick Blumenthal, and I think that's a reflection of the fact that a lot of people who maybe would have been stars in politics have decided not to get involved. A good example is my friend Kevin O'Connor, who was being groomed as one of the real stars of the Republican Party, not running this time.
But why is that? I mean, it seems, to your point, since there are a lot of newcomers and people perhaps with not the experience getting involved, it seems like he would have more of a clear shot.
I think, I don't want to speak for Kevin, but I think generally, I think it's a factor of two things. One is it's a tough time to be in politics. There's a lot of angry voters, and particularly if you're running for governor of Connecticut, I mean, the budget, the state government, it's a mess right now. And a lot of smart politicians are probably looking at that going, do I really want to take on this responsibility?
So they want to wait till the water's clear maybe in a couple of years? Or?
Yeah, I've heard from more than a few people that factored into Susan Bysiewicz's decision, for example. Mm-hmm. And if setting aside, civic mindedness and trying to do the right thing, if you're trying to look at your own self-interest as a politician, do you really want that responsibility when it could almost guarantee no matter what you do, you're going to be a one-term governor? Right.
Do you think, as a general rule, the general public is more involved in politics now, or are we just more aware of it? I don't know. I mean, since... I don't know. It almost seems as if it's cool to be involved in public service now. I don't know if that's like some sort of an Obama factor, or I know that when I go to colleges, it seems like a lot of the young students are gearing towards public service.
Yeah, I think the internet has really transformed everything. It's really democratized politics. Mm-hmm. The barrier to entry to getting involved is a lot lower. The barrier to entry just to information. It's amazing the level of awareness among average people. You talk about the idea of reconciliation, this term used for the Senate process to pass the fix to the health care bill. 10 years ago, maybe 1,000 people outside of Washington knew what reconciliation was, and they were all in political science departments. Now, there are literally millions of people who not just kind of sort of know what that is, they're following it closely. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a healthy thing. But I also think part of what's driving this is there is a disconnect between a lot of our political leadership and the people. And you see that with the healthcare debate. I think a lot of people are feeling frustrated because what happened in Washington didn't reflect their views. And they're saying, wait a second, aren't they supposed to be acting on my behalf? Whether you're for the public option, right, when a lot of people on the left feel like got sacrificed, and then a lot of people on the right who feels like this bill is a government takeover of healthcare. Both sides sort of feel like, wait a second, I'm disenfranchised.
Is there going to be a Scott Brown moment here in Connecticut, you think, in terms of, particularly filling Senator Dodd's seat?
Well, I think it's very unpredictable. Again, I think the electorate is as volatile as I've ever seen it in my lifetime in politics. And I think with Linda McMahon, there is that potential. I don't know if it's a Scott Brown moment, but there is the potential for a candidate like Dick Blumenthal, who at any other time would probably just have a lock claim on that Senate seat. If she gets the nomination, which I think she will, he's going to have to fight for it. And given the level of anger at Washington, which is not just conservative Republicans, you don't know what's going to happen. And if it's a close race, I think all bets are off.
So you spoke of Blumenthal. I don't know how much you know about Merrick Alpert, his challenger, at least for the Democratic candidacy. The debate, which you told me you did not see, did not go well. What are your friends in politics in Connecticut saying about it?
Well, I think, I'll just offer my general observation, not having seen the debate. Again, I think it's a tough transition from being Attorney General, right, and having to be able to do things unchallenged and having the authority he has and not have to do it in a political context, yes, to suddenly transition and become a Senate candidate. So I think you have to cut Dick Blumenthal a little slack. Right. It happened very, very quickly, and it's probably going to take some time for him. He hasn't had a tough campaign in a long time, and it's a testament to the view of what a good job he's done as Attorney General. But now he's going to have to earn it, I think, in terms of the public of Connecticut, even among Democrats, and he's going to win that primary. But it's going to be a process where he's sort of going to be feeling his way out and settling on a message and then preparing for what I think will be a very tough general election fight.
Right. Let's get back to Senator Dodd. How much persuasion or power do you think that Connecticut loses with his departure? In D.C.
A lot. And I think again, it's very sad as someone who worked in Washington for a long time, very closely with Senator Dodd and his staff. I've always had a lot of admiration for him. He's a Paul's Paul, and he was one of the few Democrats, even though he's a liberal Democrat, who was able to really work with Republicans. It's very interesting that he and Senator Lieberman often have different styles and may take some different positions here and there, but both of them sort of had a view of politics of at the end of the day, you try and find common ground, you get bipartisanship to move things and get things done. And I think Senator Dodd had a lot of ability to work with Republicans and pass legislation. He delivered results. He delivered a lot of results for the state. Mm-hmm. And then with his seniority, and he is a very well-liked figure in the Senate. And the Senate is a club. When you're well-liked, you're able to make things happen. So I think that no matter who takes his place, that we're going to lose out because of that.
Right. Okay. We're going to continue our conversation with Dan Gerstein coming up, looking at Connecticut politics. We'll be right back.